like at some point we have to trust. At some point we have to trust in what God's doing. We trust that God has a plan. And that's not a cop out because we still have to be actively a part of his plan every day. God is going to take care of us and he has a plan. And so every moment, like, all right, Lord, like, I don't know how this is going to work, but I trust you.
Hello and welcome. I'm Julia Barbaros. I'm here with my darling husband, Gino. We are the Julia and Gino Show, and we have an amazing guest today. I actually am so excited because I've been waiting for this for many years. Gino, who's on?
The show can only get better because she called me darling. So it's a great way to start. Father Innocent attended St. Gregory the Great Seminary for his undergrad in philosophy. He began his priestly ministry serving at the missionary program for young men discerning priesthood and religious life in the Bronx. He now serves as the pastoral director for the CFRs, accompanying the young brothers in early formation as they learn how to pray, live in fraternity, and love and serve the poor. One of his greatest joys, other than cooking with Gino in his backyard in Mahopac, New York, is to bless people in their identity as sons and daughters of the Father. An accomplished author, an amazing man. Welcome to the show, Father Innocent, brother. How you doing?
It is so good to be here with you, and it makes me so happy. We've known each other for a long time. We were just talking about our ages. I won't name our ages, but I've known you since the beginning of my religious life.
Yes.
And this is my 18th year in religious life. And so I'm just saying we've known each other for a long time. So it's just great to be with you.
Let's talk about that first time you met us. I remember your brother, we would come down to the friary during Thanksgiving, cooking turkeys, and you were young, you were impetuous, you were naive. And it was so much fun because we were in the kitchen, we're cooking for 150 people, taking out these turkeys, and we're like, these turkeys are beautiful. Oh, but you know what? It's not just us. It's the Lord that's helped us out. I just remember how much fun.
He talks about that often.
Often. I always just remember that story. And hey, listen, we just got back up there this past year. What were your first impressions of meeting the family and even just getting into the religious life with the friars?
You know, it's interesting. It's a great question because one thing that I've always found that is just really important to me, and you learn this along the way, again, being 18 years in religious life, you just learn a lot, right? How many years have you guys been married?
26.
Darling, 26 years.
Right. So again, we were both kind of, I mean, not at the beginning of the journey, but we've been through a lot together, and you just learn a lot. And one thing that I've always experienced from the beginning of like religious life formation is that we long to be a part of a family. Like when we follow Jesus and we give up everything, and for everyone, like we follow Jesus and it's hard and we have to give up a lot of stuff and sacrifice a lot of things. But when I was a young religious man, I met you guys. I'm no gray hair, might I add. No gray hair.
I didn't either.
I still don't.
You look great. You look great. I just remember when you guys would bring the family over, and year after year, right? We would have Thanksgiving together, and then we'd visit you guys. And when my family would come to town, I would bring my family to be with you guys, right? I remember my diaconate ordination, my whole family coming, and we had dinner at your house. What I longed for was to be a part of a family. And I experienced that with the friars. Like, I mean, I think you guys do as well. Like, I love being at dinner with the friars. I feel it's real. Guys are really caring about each other. It's fun. We laugh. And I was attracted to that. But one thing I experienced with you guys is that we're all made for family. And I left my family in Nebraska. And I was like, man, can I do this? Can I leave I love my siblings. I love my parents. I love my friends. So coming to New York from Nebraska, I mean, the Midwest to the Northeast, I'm not going to judge, but I'm saying it's not easy. So when you guys come walking in, I'm like, man, like I feel like you guys loved us, brought us into your family.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why when you guys came, I was like, I feel alive. I feel like I'm loved. I feel like Gino and Julia really care about me. Right. Anyway, I think that's what the young men long for. So this year, a couple months ago, when you came, guys come alive. All your kids were around and they're so wonderful. And guys respond to family life because I think it's written into us. So anyway, that was my experience meeting the Barbaros. And 18 years later, I still feel a part of your family.
100%.
Religious life sounds glamorous and you make it look glamorous at times. What are the challenges with religious life? What challenges have you come across in the past 18 years?
Great question. I think people romanticize religious life. I mean, let's be honest, St. Francis, we're Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. We follow in the footsteps of St. Francis, who radically gave up everything to follow Jesus. And St. Francis in the 1200s he read the Gospels and he took them literally. Like, give up everything and follow Jesus. Great. Give everything to the poor, follow Jesus. And so, like, my man lived the gospel literally, and it was a radical life of poverty. And there was an intensity, but it was romanticized. And he was a holy man. And again, I'm not reducing Francis to those things, because he was a holy man and he was a saint that like probably one of the most popular saints, amazing saints around. But people romanticize religious life. I think when I joined when I was 22, I romanticized religious life. I wanted to be radically in love with Jesus. I wanted to give up everything, and I wanted to be a missionary. Gino, I think what I realized I wanted there to be an intensity about my life. I wanted intense love. I wanted intense relationships, and I wanted to give everything to Jesus. So while I think that's why I'm here, and while I think that 18 years later, I hope I still got it. But one of the things that's so incredible, maybe, I mean, I know I'm not the interviewer here, but I would love to bounce past this back to you to see what your thoughts are. Because I think whether it's religious life or it's family life, I think we have our hopes and dreams, but then real quick, we are hit by our poverty and limitations. Like, Gino, Julia, life is not easy. And I'm not a saint. And I realized that, like, sometimes as a young 22-year-old, and now I'm going to be 40, and I'm like, wow, like, how have I grown the past 18 years? Wow, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Or kind of the monotony. Like, what about, I think the growth is the day in and day out, the small things that no one else sees, right? Like, okay, yeah, I've written books, and yeah, okay, we traveled around, but those things people don't remember. But my brothers remember me for the daily yeses and the present moment. Things are not glamorous.
Yeah.
Right. So what I've realized in my life is just, I'm actually a poor man who gets up every day and struggles to follow Jesus in the small things. And that's what I've learned. That's actually what it's about. Can I get up every single day and follow Jesus in the small things, not just the glorious, glamorous things, but in the small things? Because I think that's what makes you holy.
Can you talk about some of those small things for somebody that is, it may be foreign to them to say, well, how do you follow Jesus? What are some of the small things that you do to follow Jesus daily? And I wanted to say, you wanted to ask me a question. Before you answer that question,
he always gets like the first half of the show.
I do, because it's interesting.
I get a little push from his leg.
I do.
Like,
I'm going to ask you questions.
And you had said something to the point, I don't remember what it was, and it just popped in my mind. And I said, for the last 26 years, I've made her life a lot easier, haven't I, baby?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the question, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
Some of the things that you do to follow Jesus daily.
Yeah, and again, I want this to be a conversation, because I actually think they're very similar to married life. I think it's something similar to, maybe just get your thoughts on this. Like, guys, it's something as easy as setting my alarm. Like, I have made a decision to get up at a particular time every day to pray. And no matter what time I go to bed, no matter what's happening, that alarm gets set. And I roll off my mattress and I get on my knees before the icon of Jesus in my room. And I start the day with him. So that might sound like, oh, that sounds like really pious, but it's a matter of being committed to getting up and making the time. So Julia, just to say, like, it's got to be similar to parenting.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the small thing about setting my alarm and being, I'm going to get up because this is my life, and I give myself to Jesus or my kids.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I have to say, early on when we knew you guys, I was a young mom. And I remember Michael we were, you guys were all coming over, and we were just talking about you all. And I said something about confession. I'm like, oh, the guys, when they go to confession, he goes, what? And I'm like, they go to the priests go to confession now. And I'm like, yeah, they do. And I sat there for a second. I'm like, wait, what? Because as a young person, you just see religious life as perfect. Like, you guys are just so like angelic and all of those things.
That's not what
and
I
then we
see.
got to
I don't
know
what
you.
you're seeing, baby.
But no. And then I'm like, wait a second. I had to sit there for a second and be like, oh yeah, Michael, of course they go. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, wow, they're just like me. That's what my thought was. And I was thinking like, okay, yes, how you just described religious life is so similar to, I can speak for me, it was motherhood, because there are days you wake up and you're like, how am I going to even get out of bed? And I know you have a sister with a lot of children, and I know you talk to her, but there were moments where I'm like, okay, I just need to wake up. Thank God for today. I'm like, you have to give me strength, because I literally can't get up. And I'm like thinking about all my kids, about to run into the room and so on. And so, yeah, it's those little tiny things that you have to, it's almost like, my husband is very organized and he plans ahead. And I do to a point. If I have a party or something, I plan ahead, but I can't do it because I don't know what's going to happen that day.
That's a limiting belief. Just let's throw it out there.
Well, there's some times where your kids are sick. You have all these plans. Your kids are sick. It's like, oh, okay, now what? So now you have to pivot.
I just mentioned that I'm getting ready to take our guys to a mission experience in the desert.
Exactly.
And Gino, you would appreciate this as the dad. I'm like, everybody's getting on a plane on Sunday morning. Come hell or high water.
Right.
But then I'm hit in the face by reality because I have 6 guys who are sick. And so the word that I want to use, Julia, I often feel very poor when I wake up in the morning. And as a religious, we joke, like my sister, you mentioned, she's like my hero. They just had their 8th. And I sometimes attempt to whine about my life.
Yeah.
And my sister's like kind of quiet and kind and holy. She's like, you know what, Father, if no one's sucking on you, pooping on you, puking on you, getting you up in the middle of the night, I don't really want to hear about it. I'm like, okay, fair enough. But I often feel like, I wake up at 4 a.m. and because of my responsibility as a consecrated man is to pray. And so I don't have dependents like children, but my spiritual children, I would consider your family because I pray for you. But that's my thing. I get up and pray for the people I love, knowing that you can't maybe get up because of your responsibilities.
Yeah.
But that's why I get up. And so almost like we need each other because your consecrated priestly friends are getting up and praying when you can't, and you're cooking breakfast for your kids.
Yeah.
I know you got to do a holy hour, but you got to
go there. Yeah, I want to talk about that. Thank you for bringing that up because I think there was a lot of pressure early on. I knew a lot of moms who would do that. They wake up at 5 a.m, do all their prayers, and they looked so perfect to me. And I'm like, I could never live up to that. I could never wake up at 5. The thought of it, sometimes I would be up all night, and then 5 o'clock would come. I'm like, what? No. So it's just not. It's not realistic. And I would feel so guilty, like I'm not praying enough. I'm not praying long enough. I'm not doing the right prayers. I'm not living the holy life.
Julia, why is the laundry piling up over there? You didn't make lunch.
Right.
Your time. Come on, baby.
Things that come to, and I'm like, I'm not good enough, and it wasn't enough, and that's how I felt for years and years and years. And so I put that on my kids too, because even if we did the rosary and it wasn't a full rosary, we only got to one decade, not enough. And so from your perspective, I love the fact that you have a big family because I think that helps. I feel like all the brothers I know that have sisters with children, it's a different conversation with me.
Okay.
Right. And so what would you say to the moms listening that they feel like I did for years?
And Julia, that means a lot to me because personally, my heart's moved for you there and my heart's moved for my sister and so many mothers. What I probably want to help you do is to fight the lie, because that's not the lie that you're not good enough or that I have to do more. That's not how Jesus sounds to us. Jesus is never going to speak to us like that. So we have to fight the lies that I have to perform. I have to do more. And if I only did more as a mom or a dad or a religious, if I only did more, then I'd be more holy. That's just not how Jesus speaks to us. So that's just number one. We have to fight the lies. So identifying the lies is huge. And what lies do I actually believe about or what's driving me? Right. And we could talk more about that because you could just talk about that a long time. But so what's driving me, what the lies I have to fight? What I just guess my heart is moved to say is that our vocations and our prayer start in reality. It grows in reality. So reality is that as a mom and dad, you don't know what your nights are going to look like. I called my sister over Christmas and 5 of the 8 kids are puking. And that you wouldn't know those nights or look like Gino, Brian, my brother-in-law had to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
But and they had to make it work.
Yeah.
But it starts in reality. And my sister and Brian showed so much grace by just responding in the present moment.
Mm.
But it wasn't they definitely, my brother-in-law, Brian, I love to death, but he definitely is not a pious man that over spiritualizes. He's like, dude, oh, this is God's will. No, yeah, it's God's will, but this is not fun. I just got picked on. In reality, Jesus comes to us in reality. And I think a whole lot of mothers grow in the mystical life by folding laundry. While their kids are napping.
Yeah.
Or the dad who's on who has a busy day at work and all his silent time with Jesus is the 15 or 20 minutes that he's driving home from work. And he decides to turn the music off and to do the best he can to live in the present moment where Jesus is really loving him. So holiness is in the present moment and in reality. Like it's not in abstract, like, oh, I wish my life was this way, or I'm going to be holy when my kids don't need me.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be holy when when I'm on vacation from my work or my 9 to 5 a lot of dads are facing, that I have to work and it's hard to pray in that context. Like I just want to, like, just right now in this present moment, wherever you're at, if I had my half an hour prayer in the morning or not, or I was tired, or I only on Sunday mass, I just felt close to Jesus after I received the Eucharist. Guys, that's not nothing. That is not nothing, right? So present moment, in reality, that's where holiness starts. And I think people think that somehow holiness is out there somewhere. And I just don't think it's true.
No, I like that, because what it did for me, because I couldn't do that, was it taught me exactly what you just said. In the moments of folding laundry, I would pray, and I would just pray from my heart. I wouldn't have a scripted prayer life. And that's all I could do. When your baby's nursing, you're just sitting there and the kids are running around and it's loud, and it's just, you're there. And so it did teach me that, but I didn't know it until years later. Do you know what I mean? So, but I want to yell out to the women out there that feel that that's not enough right now. It is enough. And that's where God wants you. That's where he meets you.
Absolutely. And that's what we have to have confidence in. And Gino, to go back to like I think what's really important as far as like as a spiritual father, and you being a father, like I do think discipline is really important. Like that we have to like be really focused, but also like hold things lightly. Maybe that's what I've learned. Like I think discipline, I mean, we live a religious life where like children need structure, families need structure. So we're disciplined, but holding things lightly. But we make the goals. I think goals are really important. Ideally, I get up at 4 a.m. and I'm faithful to what's set in front of me. But then when I get down when 8:30 comes, after our prayers, I walk downstairs and I run a friary of 18 other men. And by the time I leave the chapel and get downstairs, there are 10 guys asking me questions about their day and about their life. And so like, I'm trying to stay with Jesus, hold things lightly, but I'm really trying to help guys be faithful to what God is doing in their life. But it's wild because oftentimes, like, all right, guys, like we just got to take it. I don't know, moment by moment, right? So it's interesting. It's being open and finding Jesus in the present moment, but also being disciplined and focused. It's just like this balancing relationship.
Yeah, and you could use strong on one side with the organization, with the goals, with we got to do it. And I think that's good. So I think me and Gino actually do balance each other out.
Wait, are we going to talk a little business
Holy
right now?
cow.
You're weaving in a little business and core values and rhythms in the business and cadence of
Little
accountability.
structure.
But mom and dad, that's why mom and dads are important.
Yes.
Both are needed.
Absolutely.
So that's why I brought it back to the discipline, because absolutely.
100%. Absolutely. And if you just have my end of it, where it's just, we'll figure it out today, all of that, but you don't have the structure behind it, then you kind of live in chaos.
Yeah. And the dad brings us strength.
Yes.
Because at some point the mom's tender and she's gonna bring communion and relationships, but the dad is gonna protect the relationship and make sure that we grow. So there needs to be strength, there needs to be focus. So that's why I'm feeling this as all my guys are sick. And I called the community servant, who's our spiritual father. And I said, hey, Father, what do you want? What are you thinking? Because I mean, to get advice. He's like, Father, like this is part of why the men need to grow up. I think you guys come Sunday morning, you need to get on the plane no matter what guys are feeling. I'm like, that's not mom-esque. That's like
it's not. I agree with you. I feel like you have to have a little both in there. My motherly part would be like, God, we were going on Sunday, make it work.
I wouldn't call it tender.
Whatever works, make it work.
A lot of women are. The word tender, maybe not. That's a little bit of an oversimplification or an overstatement. She can have tender qualities at times, but not an overarching.
I think as the kids got older, it's very different. Yes, 100%. Yeah. But I think I love the fact that my husband and I work really, really well together because of that. Because I need him to be like, come on, we're going to go for a walk. I'm like, I don't really feel like it. He's like, yeah, well, let's go. We're just going to go for a walk. I'm like, I don't know.
Well, it's another one of those things where
so
for Thanksgiving, coming up to New York City, she didn't want to take the trip. It was a 10-day trip, thinking about loading 8 people on a plane, paying for all that, renting a car, and it was a challenge.
It's a stress, 100%. And I think sometimes I think it's so far through that I'm like, it's easier just to stay home. We'll just call the guys on.
Yeah, and it's interesting because maybe this is also something the whole conversations has been couched in, like what we've learned from our vocations. Like at some point, we have to trust. At some point, we have to trust in what God's doing. We trust that God has a plan. And that's not a cop-out, because we still have to be actively a part of his plan every day. God is going to take care of us, and he has a plan. And so every moment, like, all right, Lord, like, I don't know how this is going to work, but I trust you. The ball set in motion. God is good and he has a plan. He's going to take care of us. So anyway, trust is also.
It's huge. And I think that's part of, I wrote down the word control, because a lot of times, especially early on in life, especially early moms, I'm sure you as a religious, we want to be in control of what's going on. And it's hard to especially when the kids are little, we want to be in control. And then to let go of that, it's like, hold on a second, I don't know what that looks like anymore. And so as a mom of older kids, sometimes I think my kids are driving up to Jacksonville or Georgia or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how can I protect them from so far away? And it's like, wow, I need to let go. And that's really scary in the beginning, to let go of your kids.
And I think it's a huge thing for all of our lives, though, because it can be motherhood, fatherhood, religious life,
Yep.
business. Like, we usually do stuff so we have control, so we can get the outcome we want,
Mm-hmm.
or self-protect. Like, a lot of stuff, I want control in my life because I don't like to feel certain ways.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if everybody just does what I want, life's just better for me.
That's right.
Or like, if the brothers, like, the dynamics of relationships, like, sometime, like, I want control because, like, maybe my own woundedness, or this brother bothers me, or I'm afraid of, like, not being good enough, or I'm afraid of making mistakes. So if I have control, so it's a big thing in life, because again, I just go back to the poverty. Control is an illusion, right? Because again, I'm trying to hold all the different topics together here, because whether it's business or family or religious life, anyway, one of the brothers recently had this, like, incident where he just got really sick, and he was healthy, perfectly healthy, nothing. And then you're in the hospital, and it was shocking for him, because he was perfectly healthy, no issues. And now he's in the hospital and serious. But again, in one moment, your life can, like, change, and you're so poor and don't have control. So what do we have then? It goes back to, like, I think we have present moment, we have Jesus, we have each other. And if we stay in that place, then we recognize, okay, like, I can let go and I can just take it as it comes.
Let's take a quick time out to hear from our sponsors. Money isn't just about numbers. It's about the life you build, the family you strengthen, and the legacy you leave behind. In Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy, you'll discover how to align your finances with what truly matters, building a life of peace, security, and purpose. Because wealth isn't just what's in your bank account, it's the impact you leave behind. Get your copy today and start creating a legacy that lasts. And we're back. Father Quinn once told me, no margin, no mission. You've written 2 books. Let's promote these books a little bit. Let's see if we can make a few bucks for you guys. Why'd you write the book? So what are the books about, please?
So I think this goes into this great conversation, because one of the things I just really believe, I'm going to start from the back end and work forward. Like, I believe we've all been given a mission. And I just really believe that we are baptized into Jesus, and that when we have a personal relationship with Jesus, every single person who's baptized, we all are given a God-given mission that, like, is so unique and so personal. We should just do a show just on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are given a mission that's so personal. I believe that Jesus comes alive in each person really particular, and that, like, he gives a part of his heart to each one of us. And I could talk about that. That's basically what I teach the postulants. I could talk about that for days. And that's actually what the books are about. So the word that I use in the books is that I believe that we are given an identity in Jesus, who we are. Like, Gino, if I were to ask you, like, who are you? Knowing you know who you are. But I believe that there's a lot of young people nowadays, they have no idea who they are. I believe we're living in probably one of the deepest identity crises of our time. You have young people who are born into this world. Their families don't teach them it. They don't have a connection to God. And they are finding in all these crazy places meaning in their life. St. Francis was actually a one that inspires me here, because when he was having his conversion, because he lived a crazy life away from God, he was in an identity crisis. And when he finally meets God, he's overheard in prayer asking God 2 questions. God, who are you? And who am I? And I think those are the 2 most important questions anybody could ask in their lives. Lord, who are you? And who am I? And those are identity questions. And I believe if you don't get those 2 questions right, you forfeit life. Because if we don't know who God is, like who Jesus is, if we really don't know who Jesus is, we cannot understand the gift of our life, the gift of who we are, the gift of family, the gift of like success or meaning in life. And when we get God right, God gives us the gift of ourselves then I know who I am. And so those two books, Gino, that I wrote, one is called Born of Fire and one is called Sons in the Sun. They basically attempt to, they're men's books. My cute mom reads these books that I read. I'm like, Mom, they're for men. She's like, oh, I just make the translation. It's okay. But they're men's book that attempt to answer these questions, especially for young men, saying we have to bless our young men in the gift of who they are, who God is, that Jesus is Lord. And we have a Father in heaven who loves us. And Jesus became man to show us the gift of who we are, and that we are sons of the Father. And first and foremost, as our foundation, that we are sons and daughters of God. And then from there, if we get that right as being sons and daughters, we become brothers and sisters, right? We're born into a family. We become brothers and sisters who know how to love each other. We become men and women. We become spouses, right? That's a big identity. Then we become husband and wives. And then we become mothers and fathers. Like our identities are written into our lives. And you have all those, I have all those. But if we don't get it right, then we go through life, we have no idea who we are. And then that crisis feeds in to being moms and dads. We can't give that to our children or our fellow religious. We can't give that to the people we serve. And then I think it's an authenticity question. We live our lives in this place not knowing who we are. And so anyway, that's the deepest desire of my heart, to bless people in that. And as you can tell, I have a lot to say about it, but I think that makes sense.
Where can they buy the books?
So both of the books have been published by the Knights of Columbus. So if you go on their website, and then, yeah, that's probably the best, the Knights of Columbus website. And you can go to their store and buy both books.
It's so fascinating, because what you're talking about right now is really the reason why we struggle as parents. We struggle as being married. We struggle just being in the world, obviously, because I learned all of this as I grew in my marriage, in my motherhood. And now I'm like, oh, it's so obvious. That's why I struggled. And that's why I want you to be with us, Gino and I, and teach people, and your brother too, to teach people, this is who you are. This is why you're here. This is who God is.
I'm so humbled by that, because that's the deepest desire of my heart, is because, again, I don't want to criticize my own parents, but like I had the conversions late. I had the conversion in religious life. Like I lived, I mean, and this is radical, but I lived as an orphan interiorly for a long time. Yeah. And how do orphans live? Because I don't have a secure relationship with my own parents or my Father in heaven. Orphans live, I got to do it by myself. Yeah. I have to prove myself. Yep. I'm not safe in my own family. So what drives me is fear. What drives me is I got to be the best Friar I can be, because then people will love me and I find my place in the world and I find my mission. But that's not it. Because Gino and Julia, you know this, but you are sons and daughters of the Father, and the Father rejoices at every moment to give you his kingdom. Everything is given to you already. And our core identity as sons and daughters is that I have a Father in heaven who gives me everything, then I can be secure in that. But if we skip over our fundamental identity as sons and daughters and try to be husbands and fathers, and you can't do that, because you're building it out for your core identity. And Gino, just to speak as a man, like, you cannot be a father if you first are not a husband to Julia. And sometimes people are like, oh, I just want to be a dad. And I'm like, well, you have to be a bridegroom and a lover first. Like, this relationship right here between you guys is the most important thing you can invest in for your kids. Now, you know that. I would never pretend to tell you what to do. But your kids need you guys to live this solid foundation, because you guys are bride and bridegroom, husband and wife. That's your identity before a mother and father. So if there's something wrong in your motherhood or fatherhood, I would encourage husbands and wives to look at their own relationship, because that has to be fed, and then it flows out into their kids. And that's why, to be honest, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show and I love you guys dearly, but to be honest, when I'm in your presence, that's something that strikes me, the way you guys love each other.
It can be challenging. I'm not going to lie to you.
I know. And it just like,
especially living with me. That's what he's really telling you.
Just like my relationship with Jesus, it's challenging.
Yeah.
But I just know it's so apparent how you guys love each other. And you've worked at it and you've gone all in. And I think it's because you know that you're sons and daughters of the Father, and you've done the work to like grow in your relationship with God. And then you've done the work as a couple. And that's why I think your kids are so beautiful and healthy. Again, I love your kids, but I know it's not perfect. But I think you guys have built the foundations correctly. But I think you guys know the danger if there are little loopholes or structural cracks in the foundation. You guys just know it doesn't go well. If you're an inch off at the bottom, you're going to be miles at the top. You're going to be miles off.
So true.
You had a homily when we were there for Thanksgiving. You were saying mass, and it was really, I loved it, to be honest with you. And you'd said something that I thought was a little, I don't want to say strange, but I never really thought about it. When some people are trying to repel Jesus, something to the fact that I don't think they deserve Jesus. Maybe there's not enough compassion or self-love. Can you expand upon that? Do you remember that homily that you were talking about? Because it really left a really big impact on me that day.
It's it was a context of a Thanksgiving homily, right? Because
yes.
What does it mean? Like we don't deserve Jesus. Go with it. Just nod your head, Gino, if it doesn't necessarily inspire you right now. No, I'm just kidding. But that's what we have to be grateful for, is because Jesus comes to us not because we're worthy, but because he loves us. And he breaks through the unworthiness. And he says, I don't love you because you have it all together. But I choose you and love you because I've given myself to you, and I want to live in a relationship with you. And that's what we're being grateful for. I'm not grateful for God because I earned his love, but it's pure gift.
And what you had said also was you were talking about a specific person who was afraid of saying, well, I'm not worthy. He was sort of repelling Jesus because he's like, I'm not worthy to be able to be loved, but why would Jesus love me? That kind of thing. And I thought that was really interesting because at times I feel like that. Sometimes I'm like, well, I'm a screw up. I've done so many bad things and so why would he come and die on the cross for me? And you just sit there and contemplate, and you just sometimes, I don't want to use the word self-hatred, but sometimes we go there and go, well, I'm not really worthy of that. And he's like, so you're sort of pushing Jesus away. And I was like, wow.
You're not allowing him to love you.
Yes. And that the person you were talking about, that's the experience that he was having.
Yeah.
And I remember you talking about it, like, wow, that is
and I think that story was the young man who didn't receive the Eucharist, right?
Yes.
He said, Father, he's like, it's so difficult for me because I have so many wounds and weaknesses and sins. And I don't want Jesus to come so close because I can't imagine receiving him inside because I'm not worthy of that.
Right.
And it's moving to me because, again, and I think this is what I said, and this is what I try to live every single day, is that when we feel the self-resentment, or even Julia, you're talking about, sometimes we want to be hard on ourselves, or like, oh man, like I'm not good enough, or it's the small orientation to stop looking at ourselves, turn back to him. And it's a really just it's a gaze. Like I need to stop looking at myself and turn my eyes to Jesus. Because guys, what's most important, and this is so simple, but it's the truest thing about our faith. When we pray, or we go to mass, or we receive the Eucharist inside of us, we are living in communion with a real person. Like Jesus is looking back at us. And so even if it's just that moment of like, okay, I'm going to stop looking at myself and my resentment because we're not worthy. And I'm going to repent today and probably get up tomorrow and be impatient with the brothers and make mistakes and like all these different things. But I'm going to stop looking at myself and I'm going to turn to Jesus and trust what he says about me. Right. I mean, because remember, your kids, like growing up, I'm sure your kids struggled and maybe they were hard on themselves or frustrated. And you tell your kids, no, you need to believe me. You're good. It's okay. Like, you're not in trouble, whatever it is. Like, you have to say what's true over them. And sometimes Jesus is like, no, Gino, look at me. Like, I know you're not worthy, but I don't love you because you're worthy. I love you because you belong to me. Like, and we need to believe what he says about us rather than what we believe about ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's a common issue with all of us at times, obviously more than others. And obviously in the society right now, where people truly don't feel loved. And that's why they're craving communities, they're craving families outside of their own because they don't feel seen, they don't feel loved at home. They're trying to find something that, do you know what I mean? And so it's a challenge right now. And I did hear someone say once, and I keep it with me and I think about it often. Someone says, just let God love you. And I think I had to think about that for a while. I'm like, holy cow, we actually push him away. He's like, there. I'm like, no, thank you. I'm good. I got this. It's like the little toddler that's like, no, I want to do it myself. It's like, okay, go for it. You could try it. But I want to let go of that. It's like a control thing, like we were talking about before. If I let go of the control, then I could allow my God to love me.
Yeah. And I love that, just letting God love you in the moments, especially when I don't even want to look at myself like I'm
Right.
so weak
Yeah.
but he's always there,
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah.
And
And
again, I love that because and again, if I could just go back to it's people are looking for love in all the wrong places
mhm.
because they don't know who they are.
I think the problem is sometimes it's too simple. The answers are too easy. They're too simple and they're too straightforward. It's like, oh, I don't have to do all these things. I don't have to get my life together first. And I think that's where we kind of get caught up. It's like, oh, it's actually a simple solution.
And you actually have to, but this is a hard thing for people. You actually have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Like we think we have to earn our identity and love by what we do.
Yes.
So we're just constantly driven. Like if I just do more things, or that's why like again, the success business, like going to college, spending $400,000 on like we just constantly do, we have to perform. And I'm not saying that there's not value in those things, but I know that I've worked with a significant amount of young men who do all the things, it's like done everything imaginable, got the girls,
all the
got the
boxes.
money, checked off
Yep.
the boxes. They're in their mid 30s. They have nothing to show for because they've been chasing their identity in all the wrong places.
Well, I think that's where I want to go with this moving forward, is to just talk to those people, even the people like me too, because we're all growing in this. And I just want to put that out there in the world is we figured it out within reason. We to a point right now. I got it. Okay. But tomorrow I'm going to learn something different.
Yeah. And I just to say, like, I'm 18 years in a religious life, but I've
Yeah.
made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I have to get up every single day and fight for the same truths. And so a part of why I wrote the books on identity is because it's an authenticity thing. Like I'm getting up, fighting the battle every single day. And so like, just to say like, that's why it's a joy to like, and maybe it's like a series on identity but like to take people through like, and start building from the foundation up and just saying like, we got to start from the beginning and to bless people in the gift of who they are. Because if you get that right, then you can embrace your God-given mission. And I believe that's what we're made for. We're not made to sit around and think about ourselves all the time. We're made to give ourselves away and to like bear fruit. And that could be in family, vocation, even in business. I got to give my friend Gino a bone here, like business, come on. Like, but it's supposed to be fruitful because it's from the place that I know who I am and I can give myself away.
In the essence of time, we are going to have you back for part 2 for a personal mission. But if they want to learn
He's
more
part of our family.
If they want to learn more about
part of the Barbaro family.
If they want to learn
sorry, all you people, you're stuck with me. I've been adopted by the Barbaros. I'm sorry.
If you want to learn more about the CFRs and your mission, where can they learn more?
Yeah, you can go to franciscanfriars.org. I'm Franciscan Friars. Again, we're Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. So that's just to really invite you guys to see that. You can get us on, I don't have social media, but Facebook, Instagram, you can see the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal. And just to see our life, it's awesome.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, I always like to share my little tidbits of the show and really recap Father Innocent's life in 60 seconds or less, Joel.
Sure.
Young Father Innocent at the time was not a father, 22 years of age, coming from the Midwest to Harlem, St. Joseph's Friar on 142nd Street. And as he's looking around, he's like, sweet Jesus, what happened? Where am I?
Cornfields to the concrete jungle. What happened?
Did I make a mistake here? Are you sure this is what you want me to do? He's stuck in there. He met the Barbaros. That fateful day of cooking. Yes, enjoying it. And then my fateful event of August 2011 when my restaurant burned to the ground. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life.
That ever happened.
Yet they were over every week. Didn't know where the bills were going to get paid, but we were having pork loin. We were cooking up a storm for the next 6 weeks in August. One of the best, for me, one of the best summers of my life. Mm-hmm. And I think to us, the relationship has only grown as we've all gotten older and wiser. Mm-hmm. And the 2 books, once again, Born of Fire, Sons in the Sun. Go to the Knights of Columbus to pick them up. Go to the Franciscan Friars' social media because their social media is phenomenal. Father Mark Mary's got a new podcast out, so go follow him as well. And we just want to thank you for being on the show, and we'll see you on the next show.
It's going to be.
Guys, I'm grateful. This is only the beginning, but it's a joy to be with you guys.
Thanks, Father.
Until next time.
Very soon.